Picture this. Two employees, same company, same team, same manager. One of them works longer hours, produces cleaner reports, fixes problems before anyone else even notices them. In performance reviews, their manager calls them invaluable. The other one, solid work, nothing extraordinary, but they always seem to know who's deciding what. They show up in the right conversations. They're mentioned favorably in rooms they're not even in. At the end of the year, only one of them gets promoted. You probably already know which one. And if you've spent any time inside a real organization, you've seen some version of this happen. Maybe it happened to you. Maybe you're watching it happen right now. Most people call this unfair. Some call it corrupt. A lot of people just call it office politics and say it with the kind of bitterness that tells you it's hit close to home. But here's the thing almost nobody talks about. Office politics doesn't happen despite the organization. It happens because of it. It's not a bug in the system. It was never a bug. So why does it exist? And more importantly, why does understanding it change everything about how you work? The workplace problem. Here's the belief that almost every professional carries into their first corporate job, and that a surprising number carry for their entire career. Do excellent work, let results speak for themselves, stay out of the drama, success will follow. It's clean, it's rational, it's almost noble. And in most real organizations, it quietly fails. Not because the companies are full of bad people, not because hard work gets punished, but because that belief contains a fundamental misunderstanding about what organizations actually are. An organization is not a machine that measures inputs and distributes rewards proportionally. It is a social system. It's a collection of humans with different agendas, different fears, different ambitions, all operating inside structures where resources are limited, human decision makers, and social dynamics. And wherever you have that combination, scarce resources, human decision makers, and social dynamics, you will get politics every single time, without exception. You can find it in Fortune 500 companies. You can find it in nonprofits that exist specifically to do good in the world. You can find it in academic departments, in government agencies, in small startups where everyone claims to have a flat culture. The name changes, the intensity varies, but the underlying behavior doesn't disappear. The uncomfortable truth? The organizations that claim to have no politics are usually the ones where the politics is most hidden and therefore most dangerous. First, hidden truth. So if politics is unavoidable, the real question becomes, where does it actually come from? Most people assume politics is about bad actors, the manipulative colleague, the credit-stealing manager, the executive who plays favorites. Those people exist, but they're not the origin of office politics. They're symptoms of something deeper. Here's the first hidden truth. Organizations are structurally designed to create competition. Think about what every organization actually contains: limited headcount, finite budget, a fixed number of promotions per cycle, one seat at the leadership table, projects that get funded and projects that don't. Every one of those constraints creates a situation where someone wins and someone doesn't. And when the criteria for winning aren't fully objective, when good performance is partly subjective, when leadership potential is in the eye of the beholder, humans don't just compete on output, they compete on relationships, on perception, on reputation. That competition is politics. It's not a character flaw. It's an adaptive response to the environment the organization itself created. 3 workplace stories. Story 1. Michael joined a consulting firm as a senior analyst.
By every measurable standard, he was exceptional. His models were clean, his client deliverables were precise. He consistently hit deadlines ahead of schedule. But Michael had a philosophy. He believed his work should stand on its own. He kept to himself. He didn't attend optional team gatherings. He didn't particularly cultivate his relationship with his manager beyond the weekly check-in. He wasn't unfriendly, he was just focused. Sophia joined the same firm a year later. Her technical work was competent, good, but not as thorough as Michael's. What Sophia was genuinely skilled at, though, was reading the room. She knew who influenced decisions. She made a point of understanding what her manager cared about, not just professionally, but in terms of what kept them up at night. She connected with people across teams. She made others feel seen. 18 months in, a senior manager role opened. The decision went to Sophia. Michael was told he needed to develop his executive presence. He thought that was code for something unfair. It wasn't. It was code for something real that he hadn't learned to value. In ambiguous decisions, humans promote people they trust, and trust is not built through deliverables alone. Story 2. A mid-sized tech company goes through a restructuring. Two directors, call them James and Rachel, are both fighting to retain their teams in the new structure. On paper, their results are comparable. James has slightly better revenue numbers. Rachel's team has a higher NPS score from internal stakeholders. The executive team meets to decide. Rachel keeps her team. James doesn't. What happened? Over the previous year, Rachel had consistently engaged with the VP of Operations, not to lobby for anything, but to offer insight, share information, make herself useful. She had invested in relationships across the organization in a way that felt natural and genuine, not transactional. When the executives sat in that room and needed to make a judgment call under uncertainty, their instinct was to protect the person they felt they knew. James had spent that same year focused almost entirely on execution. He was excellent at his job, but in the room where his fate was being decided, nobody felt a strong pull to go to bat for him. That is the invisible tax that unmanaged politics levies, quietly, without warning, precisely when it matters most. Story 3. In a product team, Emma identifies a serious flaw in how the company is measuring customer retention. She's right. The data is clear. She raises it in a team meeting. The room is politely skeptical. The manager says they'll look into it. Nothing changes. 6 weeks later, David, a PM from a different pod, raises the exact same concern. He had spent those 6 weeks having quiet conversations with 3 different stakeholders, understanding their objections, building alignment before the meeting even happened. His version lands differently. It becomes a company initiative within the quarter. Emma is frustrated. She was right first. But David understood something she didn't yet. Being right is not sufficient. The timing, the framing, and the social infrastructure around an idea determine whether it moves or dies.
The deeper psychology. Why does all of this happen? Why doesn't good work simply win on its merits? 3 psychological mechanisms explain most of what you see. The first is social proof. When humans are uncertain, and in organizational decisions there is almost always uncertainty, they look to other people for cues. Who else thinks this is a good idea? Who already supports this person? Whose credibility is attached to this project? This is why ideas need champions. It's why getting a respected voice to endorse something before a meeting matters more than the content of your presentation during it. The second is loss aversion. Psychologically, humans feel the pain of a loss about twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Inside organizations,
This means that when resources get tight, when there's a restructuring, a budget cut, a leadership change, people don't just start working harder, they start working politically. They protect territory, they form alliances, they make sure the right people know their value. Office politics intensifies during scarcity, not because people suddenly become worse. It intensifies because the stakes feel higher, and the normal rules of just do good work feel inadequate to the threat. The third is in-group favoritism. Decades of social psychology research show the same thing. Humans favor people they perceive as part of their group. In the workplace, that group is defined not by your job title, but by repeated interaction, shared context, and the gradual accumulation of trust. Managers promote people who feel familiar. Executives greenlight projects from people they've built a rapport with. This isn't conscious corruption, it's an automatic psychological preference. And it means that the employee who is technically brilliant, but socially invisible, is operating at a structural disadvantage that performance reviews will never fully fix.
The contrarian insight. Here's something most people don't want to hear. The employees who are most vocal about hating office politics are often among the most politically active in the building. They just lack awareness of it. Publicly declaring that you're above politics is itself a political move. It positions you as principled. It signals to observers where your loyalties don't lie. It shapes how other people perceive your motives. That's influence management. That's politics, executed without a label. And here's the second one. Opting out of office politics is not neutral ground. It is the most disadvantaged position on the board. When you withdraw from the informal networks, when you don't invest in relationships, when you assume that visibility will take care of itself, you don't remove yourself from the game. You simply become someone else's pawn in it. Decisions get made about your career, your projects, your reputation in rooms you're not in by people who don't know your name well enough to use it. The people who understand this aren't manipulative, they're not cynical. They simply accept that organizations are social systems and they choose to engage with that reality deliberately rather than resent it silently. Practical framework. The goal is not to become someone who plays politics for its own sake. The goal is to stop being someone who suffers from politics they don't understand. Here's a framework worth keeping in your back pocket. The 2 org chart method. Step 1. Draw the official org chart. Title, reporting lines, departments. You know this one. Step 2. Draw the real org chart. This is the one that actually determines what gets done. Ask yourself, who do senior leaders consistently listen to? Who holds information that others depend on? Whose opinion shifts the room before a decision is made? Who has access, not just authority, but actual access? These are the nodes of informal power. They are rarely the loudest people. They are often not the most senior, but they are the people whose support make things happen and whose opposition makes things stall. Step 3. Find where your work genuinely intersects with those nodes and invest in those relationships authentically. Not when you need something, but before you do. Not networking as a transaction. Networking as a sustained investment in being understood by the people who will one day be in rooms making decisions about things that matter to you. Memorable conclusion. Office politics exists because organizations are not machines, they are human systems. And human systems run on trust, perception, relationships, and the invisible social contracts that get negotiated long before any formal decision is ever announced. Understanding this doesn't require you to become someone you're not. It doesn't mean abandoning your integrity or learning to manipulate people.
It means recognizing that doing excellent work inside a social system without understanding the social system is like being an elite swimmer who refuses to learn the rules of the pool. The water is real. The other swimmers are real. The lanes matter. The employees who navigate their careers most effectively are not always the most talented. They're the ones who understand that excellence earns the right to be in the game, but politics determines where you finish. When you stop treating politics as the enemy and start treating it as the environment you actually operate in, you stop being a victim of it, and you start becoming someone who gets things done.